BMW 2 Series has been one of our favorite cars ever since it was introduced. We've driven all the way, every single iteration, to the M2 CS, and we love it. And the M240 has proven itself to be a great driver's car.
The prior 2 Series was the car in BMW's lineup that lived up to their ultimate driving machine reputation from 20 years ago. It lived up to it in every possible variant. You could just enjoy a 2 Series. Now, not the Grand Coupe, not the Mini masquerading as a BMW that isn't good enough. Not that one. No. This is the 2-door rear-wheel drive 2 Series.
This is the 2022 version. A lot has changed about this car. For starters, the power has gone way up. Speaking of M2, it is now 382 horsepower. It's the engine out of the Supra. It's also only in M240 form, all-wheel drive, and it's a 2-door and it takes 4 people. It's almost one of one in the marketplace. If you think about it, there's not too many other cars that compete against this one. So we brought with us a 911, a 991.1 C4S. Think about it. It's all-wheel drive, automatic transmission, or PDK in the case of Porsche. It takes 4 people, it's 2 doors, and it's a driver's car.
So we brought a 911 to a BMW discussion. That's a little bit odd, but the problem is that BMW's best stuff is becoming their upper-level trims, and those trims are becoming pretty easy to compete with if you buy something a little bit used. So not only is this a discussion of 2+2s that can be sport coupes and your daily car, but also it's a discussion of the benefits of used versus new.
It is a 2013 Porsche 911, the 991.1, first iteration of the 991 generation. It's a Carrera 4S, and this owner bought it for $65,000. This was also the first iteration past the 997 where things changed, steering inputs changed, the feel of the car changed.
This is surprisingly similar in stats to that BMW. The BMW, in fact, is even bigger than this is, and this 911 got pretty big. They're both rear-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive systems. They're both automatic transmissions, except this, truthfully, is actually a dual-clutch PDK.
And when Todd suggested a 991, I thought, no, they're still too expensive, until we went shopping. Because the specs match up very well, and that's what clinched it for me. So think about that. When you're shopping M240s, you could pay just over $57,000, almost 58 grand, or just push on your budget just a little bit more, just a tiny bit, and you can get a car with a Porsche badge on it.
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive.
TV, web, and podcast. This is Everyday Driver.
Much to my surprise, BMW still refers to this 2 Series as a sporty compact car. It is not compact in the least. This is almost the size of the E90 Generation 3 Series. And it's supposed to be the BMW small car, which tells me BMW can now introduce a new 1 Series, even smaller car.
I've always loved the 2 Series, how compact and small, and it's that right balance between a usable car and then it's an actual performance car. It's right in between. But now this has grown to be so big, it's like BMW added a grand piano to the weight.
Like the 911, this has a rear-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system, and most of the time it does feel like it's out of the way. There is a muting to great BMW steering feel that happened the minute that they went to all-wheel drive.
The steering ratio is very quick, but you don't feel anything anymore.
When I turn the wheel, my vision tells me that the car is moving. My backside tells me there's rotation. The G-forces are something I'm aware of in my inner ear. These are the ways I have to know what this car's doing. But as far as actual granular tactile feedback, there's not any.
It's almost like this car is being selfish. It doesn't want to share anything with you because it's just too good. But because this thing has gotten bigger, I don't feel like it's the nimble driver's car.
Weight in a car is the thing that gives you distance. It's the thing that keeps you away from the sensations of the car, and this has gotten, frankly, too heavy. This is the compact car, and it weighs almost 2 tons.
It's not like BMW has forgotten how to make something that handles well. There's a lot of car control here with the steering wheel. but I can feel like the insulation, the engine feels like it's farther away from me. The front end and what I feel connected to in this car feels more distant. That's just because of all-wheel drive. I'm hoping the M2 flavor of this gets really good. But it's still going to be big.
The new M2 was revealed after we filmed this 2022 M240.
And alongside the M2, BMW announced that the 2023 M240 now offers rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive and an updated interior.
That makes the version we had a strange one-year-only variant.
I'm going to go back to comfort for a moment to discuss something that I've seen in all BMWs with an M badge on them. They ride really aggressively. Now, of course, you bought the M badge because you want to have some sporty suggestion, right? But in comfort mode, I think they should be more comfortable. Now, when you go to sport mode, thankfully there is a change and the ride gets more aggressive, and it should in sport mode.
The comfort setting suspension on this car still has some lively feel to it. But then in sport, it doesn't just get bouncy. The whole car just settles. It's ready for track use.
It gets primed. It feels like it's up on its toes. But in spite of the sound, some of which is piped in, and the fact that the suspension is very aggressive, see how much I'm bouncing? In spite of those two things, there's not much information here.
I love going fast. I love driving cars that have so much deep inside them, they're inviting you to come find it. Find the edge, find the power, become a better driver. But this doesn't even have the same character as the E90 M3. When we drove that car, I felt like BMW was making you to be a better driver. With the 2 Series, I feel like you're just insulated. You've got the tools here, but you don't have the feel to go along with it.
Besides the fact that this 911 is telling you more information than the BMW, it is throwing less weight around, and of course it has that distinctive weight in the rear. So this feels alive and interesting and talkative in a way that the BMW just feels void.
This is also a car that doesn't have adaptive suspension like the BMW does. Even though in sport mode it is very stiff, but it's still compliant. It doesn't have almost a bouncy ride that the BMW has. And this wheelbase is 11 inches shorter than that car. Oh, this just gets better the faster you go. There's more engagement, it's interesting. And this is the 911 that everybody ignores. You see a 911, okay, C4S, and it's not a GT3, it's not a turbo, it's not the special car. 10 years old, and yet the magic is here.
In this generation, they unfortunately lost their hydraulic steering. They went to an electric power steering system, and they did lose some of the magic that is so brilliant in the 911 front end feel. Even here, in this first gen electric power steering, the 911 has that special front end because, of course, all the weight's behind me, way behind me.
It's funny because it doesn't have that initial sharp turn-in that the BMW has. It's a little bit more progressive into the turn, but those dynamics that Porsche works so hard on and dials so well, this is what I want. In comparison to the BMW, which completely isolates you from the driving experience, this has electric power steering, but it feels natural. It's got a natural gait to it.
Porsche's gotten better and better with their electric power steering, so has everybody else, except here's this brand new M240, and this 10-year-old 911 has more feel in the electric power steering than the BMW does 10 years later. There's not very much tire information, but there's a lot of precision here, and when I make small movements with the steering wheel, I can really tell exactly what the car is going to do.
The BMW distances you from that driving experience and lets you just watch the scenery and enjoy it. Whereas the Porsche now feels very engaging, and despite its all-wheel drive, oh yeah, I feel road. Everybody has moved on. This car is old news. It is. Nobody cares about a C4S. But when you drive it hard, it's so good.
Listen to that. What's funny is that I'm back here in this 911 going what I know intellectually is quickly, but it's easy. It's easy in the BMW too. The difference here is the fact that this still gives me some excitement, some information. I'm aware of the road surface and I can feel what the car's doing. I feel much more involved here than I do in the BMW.
Good driving dynamics are timeless. And this justifies going back and finding a 911. Let's say you don't get the C4S. We brought this simply because it matches up to the BMW. But you can get them even slightly less expensive than this. $65,000 is not nothing. But $65,000 for a driving experience like this, you'll instantly forget that it's 10 years old. Don't care.
This is still the naturally aspirated, high-revving flat six from Porsche that has that very distinctive Porsche voice. That howl that we all know from a Porsche flat six is still here like crazy. Come on. This is part of the Porsche magic, is you want to hear that engine.
400 horsepower, 325 pound-feet of torque. It makes its power very differently, because you know that the 0.2 generation went to all turbos. This is the last of the naturally aspirated 991s. But I love that surge.
Turbo used to mean something at Porsche. Now it's just a thing. It's just a badge we put on for essentially, we can't put extra dollar signs on the back, so we put a turbo badge. Of course, to find power in this 911, you have to be above about 4,500 RPM. While it has some shove below 4,500 or so, this is the classic Porsche naturally aspirated engine. You've got to wind it out to find the power. I'm in third already, and frankly, I need to be in second. Better. The 0 to 60 in this, just about 4 seconds, same as the one in the BMW.
Yeah, and that PDK, as good as automatics have gotten, and as good as it is in the BMW, PDK, dual clutch.
As absurd as this is going to sound, this PDK is involving compared to the transmission on the BMW.
The paddle interactions on this car were initially no good. Everybody who felt the long throw of the paddles on the Porsche, same on my Cayman, didn't like them. The throw was too much. The distance that you shifted was too far. But now, it feels analog in comparison to the M240. It feels mechanical and delightful. But the BMW has that transformation thing going for it. Yeah, you can put this in sport mode and it changes the engine note and the car runs fast and hard. But technology has allowed that BMW to be more versatile.
So here we have this new 2 Series with questionable styling, but this is the one with the big engine. In fact, this non-M2, the M240, has almost as much power as the competition version of the prior M2, and more power than the original M2 that BMW introduced.
That M2 made 365 horsepower. And yeah, it was fast. But this makes almost 20 more horsepower than the first actual M2. This is the engine out of the Supra. 382 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, which is a lot. And we know that BMW always sandbags their engines, their output. This is fast.
It does that BMW thing with horsepower and torque, where it always feels like more than they promised you, and it is incredibly quick.
And despite the weight of this car going up dramatically, it's unexpectedly fast.
The torque curve in this isn't a curve at all. It's just a tabletop. It's a big Moab Mesa from 1,600 RPM all the way to 5,000. You have all the torque that it will give you. This is one of those cars that you look down and go, what? How am I going that fast?
Every time you get on it, you're looking down and you're doing double the speed limit. It does that German car thing very well, where it hides its speed, and you know it's built for the roads where it was born.
In comfort mode, and with this transmission in automatic, you'll be doing the better part of 90 on the freeway and not know it. And that is actually my problem with the M240. It's gotten bigger and less involving.
It is almost 3,900 pounds. That was about how heavy the Nissan GT-R was. We couldn't believe a car that heavy could do such amazing things. And I'm feeling that again. Unbelievable. The original 2 Series just felt lively. It felt really eager to be a sports car. It's almost like BMW is repositioning the 2 Series to a different driver, because this is now like a long-legged GT car. I never looked at it as a GT car. This just wants to be on the freeway now. I'm not sure it wants to be a canyon car anymore.
I suspect I'm going faster down this road than I was in the 911. I didn't have the handy-dandy heads-up display or the crazy turbo power to get me there as fast. There's no argument about the capability of this car. It is incredibly fast. It sticks very well. The body control in a corner is excellent. I'm just not connected to it. I'm not involved.
I really like driving this car. I would totally own it. It's modern, it's fast, it's incredibly capable. But BMW has digitized everything they know about driving and good steering inputs. Even the engine feels digital in a way. It's just so incredibly capable.
I like the last 2 Series so much, and it gave me hope that BMW was still going to make cars that were just designed for people that love to drive. I understand we need to sell cars. It needs to have a revised interior and nice seats and good leather and all the things that we worry about that aren't driving. I understand why those exist. But there's supposed to be a sensation at BMW where it suggests we're here to drive. And this is we're here to cross a continent and to not really worry you about it.
I tried to come into this comparison as unbiased as I could, knowing I'd like the 911. I do love the BMW M240. But dollars to dollars, if we're really throwing down, and this is our comparison, I'm taking a 10-year-old Porsche over the brand new BMW.
If I was spending $60,000 or so on a do-it-all 2+2, I'd have to look at an old 911. You'd have to. You're overlooking it otherwise. And there's the question of value for money versus just buying a car at a certain price point. Now, of course, a 10-year-old 911, this one has 32,000 miles, will need stuff that the BMW won't because it's brand new. You lose out on some tech, that's absolutely true. When you take a Porsche in for maintenance, there is what they refer to as the Porsche tax. It's a real thing. It will always cost you more to do anything on a Porsche than it will on pretty much any other car. So brace yourself, hang on tightly to your wallet, feel the rush as the cash leaves it.
Yeah, 10 years old. And it's still brilliant to drive. It is still worth your money, worth the investment.
The BMW is incredibly capable. It's just at a distance and kind of boring to drive. Quickly, very, very fast, but boring. This is quick and asking you for some involvement that the BMW doesn't have anymore.